Good morning, my little chickens, my adorable subscribers. So this is the reason why I never vote Labour again, why I'm never going to vote Conservative. Roughly speaking, the reason I vote Labour is because I think the more I've looked into the origins and the history of the Labour Party, the more I've come to realise that the Labour Party is, in essence, or in fact, the old British Liberal Party, either the traditional party, the Whig Party of the old aristocratic families of the United Kingdom, just rebranded as Labour. And it's more like all those people, they vote Labour, and any working class people who are gullible enough to be hoodwinked into voting for it on the ostensible basis that it's really there to support the working classes in any shape or form. I don't think it is really at all. The traditional party of the working classes is, if anything, the Conservative Party in Britain. Since under Disraeli, trade unionism was decriminalised and so on, he did quite a lot to push forward the cause of voting rights in Britain also, and increase suffrage, a renaissance to some extent as the Liberal Democrats. I suspect this is because the Liberal Party would have totally lost all credibility after World War One and the travesty that turned out to be. And everyone knew at the time, it was, I suspect, common knowledge that World War One was fought over drug money. And if you look at the Treaty of Versailles, the trademarks of heroin, morphine, and cocaine were taken from German pharmaceutical companies and given to the Entente powers, France, Britain, and the United States. Take this, no. Dear. And now we live in a society where there's very big problems in society caused by illegal versions of these relatively innocuous compounds. So as cocaine, if it's chemically pure, it's not addictive, it's also rather safe to use. Heroin and morphine, those are rather safe to use so long as they don't, and not addictive either, since they're used routinely in medicine. And people don't get addicted to them in hospitals because they're chemically pure. And the problem of addiction is actually caused by the improper synthesizing of these compounds in, say, black market heroin labs, and the models of opioids that you get in street smack take a longer time to break down in the system, and hence you get the problem of addiction when you take smack, i.e. like illegal heroin. But heroin used to be sold as cough syrup for everything, prior to about 1925 in Britain or so, or 1920, I think it may have been. Or was it part of the effort during the war, World War One, under actually the Liberal Party to make the sale of these substances illegal to, cripple Germany's economy a bit more? I think it may have been something like that, as they were made illegal during World War One. Then I think it was actually under the Conservatives later on in 1926, with the passing of the first Dangerous Drugs Act, where the first controls over cannabis were introduced. And I think this may have been sort of the Tories being like that to the new Labour Party, as it were, or the old Liberal Party. It was just like, we know you're the same fucking bunch of guns. So like, like one of those, like, you've already done something blasphemous by making a green plant, i.e. the opium poppy, illegal. So we can even green a plant illegal. See how you like that. See if this causes no problems. Then again, I'm tempted to say, actually, they were, sort of thinking about this market for substances such as ibuprofen, aspirin, and paracetamol, and trying to put these onto the market and create a monopoly via making cannabis illegal, which would have been sold routinely as a form of minor pain relief, and then putting out ibuprofen, paracetamol, and aspirin, which are all invented by German pharmaceutical companies again. The history of both parties, as far as drug control is concerned, is as shoddy as the others. As the other. It's just dreadful. And Labour Party under Gordon Brown raised from cannabis from a Class C to a Class B drug. And that could have been like Gordon Brown doing it to the Conservatives, like saying, saying you're going to run an election campaign on the putative basis that you're going to legalize cannabis when you won't. So I'm going to do this to see if you lower it again to a Class C drug. And ha ha ha. And like, fine, I see possibly the logic in doing that. However, that has caused a huge amount of fallout, and people really have died because of that. Since the streets become flooded with synthetic cannabis, you have this spice epidemic, which is like low-grade weed flocked with synthetic cannabinoids that are made in China and sold on the streets in Britain, and that like probably does cause real mental health problems, and people to die actually taking that stuff. So Gordon Brown's like responsible for killing people, killing members of the poorest communities in Britain. And Tony Blair sort of simperingly in 2005 making fresh magic mushrooms illegal, since they were legal prior to that due to a loophole in the law. And it's just like, fuck yourselves. And then there's Iraq and everything else, and Afghanistan, which had nothing to do with poppy fields. Oh no, it couldn't do. And they've got like the Green Party, who's the only party I'm going to vote for from now on, like espousing a pretty solid, sensible, reasonable drug policy. The only parties doing it, like Labour, don't mention it at all. Corbyn hinted he might do it with cannabis. He might decriminalise cannabis. So I voted Corbyn. Voted for Miliband because the Tories already betrayed everyone and like exposed themselves as a pack of lying hyenas over cannabis. So because in 2010 I would have voted for David Cameron if I could have done. So I was like, it's going to legalise cannabis. So like, ooh, maybe he is serious. Christ alive. And like it's worth a punt, isn't it? I don't think I'll vote for Brown, not after everything that Labour's been doing in Iraq and so on. And after all that shit, and frankly, after raising cannabis to a Class B drug, and frankly, after making shrooms illegal, totally. But I think Cameron actually, yes, because he'll beat these cunts. But gets into power, like makes it legal, yeah, for big business or one business, GK Pharmaceuticals, who's owned by the husband of a Tory minister. But, oh God. It could not be more venal, could it? I'll just use a licensing infrastructure for growing cannabis. Or why can't you get a license then? Because it costs £1,000 to apply for it, and you don't give any out. And other countries they've managed to legalize it somehow. You couldn't just copy them, could you? Why can't you? When did Uruguay do it? It was actually ages ago, wasn't it? In Uruguay. Like you're allowed like X number of plants per personal use, like 6 plants per person or something, is it? Like you're allowed to smoke in your own home, not on the streets, whatever. You got coffee shops in the Netherlands, for fuck's sake. And that was not legal in the Netherlands. Like, no, but because they're ceded to the International Opium Convention as well. And yet, okay, what members of the International Opium Convention nations who've signed it are going to go to war with Holland over bud? That wouldn't be very nice, would it? Are you looking to the vicissitude of Dutch law? But it is possible. It's also blasphemous to make it illegal in the first place. So it undermines the central tenets of any Western legal system, and frankly, any system in the East. It's seeking to undermine the word of God Almighty as it stands in the Book of Genesis. Nowhere is like, does God say, no, I rescind your right to the cultivation or consumption of any green plant. Like, it's pretty unambiguous. So gave it to us in the very beginning, any green plant, and he reiterated that after the flood. And if you're trying to assert that cannabis is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right, Well, again, you're sort of trying to put yourself in the almighty spot, aren't you? In that assertion, because we don't know, and it is a secret plant of the Garden of Eden specifically. It's not really everywhere else on the planet, which is weird. You know, because like, or is Bhutan the Garden of Eden, where cannabis grows wild? These grow fucking wild everywhere. So it is clearly like allowed, isn't it? And no one didn't think it wasn't allowed, or no one thought it wasn't allowed until 1926 or 25 in Britain. And he just made it illegal to protect the textiles industry, the fuel oils industry, the paper industry, because he wanted to use crude oil to make plastic and fuel oils, and to protect the pharmaceuticals industry as well, and to protect the paper industry because 80% of hemp paper of any kind prior to, well, yeah, about 1920 or so would have been printed on hemp. And William Randolph Hearst, as we are famously sort of aware of now, wanted to protect his interest in the timber industry in the States and paper mills, since he's from a wealthy media family. His father was a newspaper tycoon. He became one as well. Yeah, the film Citizen Kane is based on his life. So this, I can't stand this, because to protect the interest of these Yankee corporate elites, in essence, you've deprived us of a phenomenal future we could have had. You know, we'd be building hemp thermoplastic rockets and so on. They'd be the size of skyscrapers. That is possible. I'm certain. I'm pretty certain that is possible. No one's even attempting that. That's a tragedy. And you know, these prohibitions, these laws that unleashed what was by far the most blood-soaked century in human history. Like, by a country mile, the most violent period in human history, the 20th century. With, yeah, successes. Yeah, we landed on our moon. Yes, we invented the computer to defeat the Nazis, and so on and so forth. But I mean, still, for fuck's sake, just this drug money bullshit. Like, everyone would be better off if they were legal. Everyone would be. Even the capitalists. I don't realize that. You know, in your efforts to like isolate yourself in your little mansion, you end up like that creep John DuPont. He wasn't exactly happy, was he? Like, you know, it was like creepy little weasel John DuPont killing a wrestler. Was it Mark Schultz? Was it, what's it probably called? Eric, I don't know. The one played by Mark Ruffalo. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Bye bye. That's why I will not vote Labour or Conservatives, and why you shouldn't either. And don't listen to Russell fucking Brand telling you not to vote, like that idiotic shit Gibbon. Don't vote. Fuck you, Russell. Vote. Millions of young men of similar age to yourselves had to die in the mud to get you your right to vote. Vote. And ideally vote for the Green Party if you're in Britain. I think. Thank you for watching. Bye.